ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hare Om. Salutations to all. So yesterday we saw the perceived factor, which is the small I, how that is a fictitious entity, and how the conclusion of this thing was the false identification that we have with the body, mind, intellect, and with this individuality, that has to be dropped. So in 296 and 297, that was the conclusion. Atobhimanam tyajamamsa pinde. That drop this identification with the bundle of flesh. In 297, it was called as a foul corpse. And also drop the identification with the ego which is functioning through that. Pindabhimaninyapi buddhi kalpite. Identify with the supreme truth which is existing at all times in three periods of times and which is of the nature of pure bliss and knowledge. Attain peace. Shanti mupaihi nityam. Now that very small I from 298 to 309, the effects of this small I, that why should I drop this small I? Those effects are explained, and it is a certain, the word used here is condemnation of the ego, but it is to destroy this false identification. 298. So this has no meter. It's 298 verse, no proper meter for it. So Santyanye pratibandha pumsaha samsara hetavo drishtaha teshamekam moolam prathama vikaro bhavatyahankaraha. Santi anye pratibandhaha pumsaha. For a person, there are other obstacles also. Samsara hetavo drishtaha, which are cause for this cycle of birth and death. Tesham ekam moolam prathama vikaro bhavati ahankaraha. Of the different causes which make a person go through the cycle of birth and death, the one of the root causes, ekam moolam, and the first modification, prathama vikaraha bhavati ahankara, is the ego. First modification is ego, meaning ignorance is the root cause, not knowing who am I. Now I identify with one equipment and I consider myself as to be that. So that is the ego. So when he says there are other things that haul man into a world cycle of birth and death, those are all effects of this, like the desire, attachment, body identification. Those things, they make the person go round and round in the cycle of birth and death. But from where are they born? They are born from the ego. And from where ego is born? False identification with the BMI and ignorance of the truth. Then the ego is born. So he says this ego is the cause. As long as I feel I am this limited entity, no matter what I achieve in this world, as long as I feel I am a jiva, I am finite, I am limited, so long the cycle of birth and death will continue. And hence, if I understand that and I am clear that enough of this cycle of birth and death, I have to come out of this. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. This cycle, I need to come out. This cycle is only an effect. If you remember, we have done 3 cycles. One is ignorance cycle, one is karma cycle, one is cycle of birth and death. So cycle of birth and death is the effect of karma cycle, which is vasana, desire, thought, action, result, vasana. This cycle. This karma cycle is the effect of ignorance cycle. Ignorance of the self leads to false identification with the body, mind, intellect. Then I feel incomplete. So now this false identification with the body, mind, intellect, that is called ego. Ignorance and then this one. So why do we say that ignorance, this is the first vikara? Now it is said this is the first vikara because ignorance is not experienced by us directly. The sense of incompleteness is experienced by us. The feeling that I am Mr. So and so, that is experienced by us. Whenever I identify with the BMI, that feeling comes in the dream as well as in the waking. But ignorance that I don't know the self, that is not experienced directly by us. So hence it is prathama vikara. Tesham ekam moolam prathama vikara. In fact, that there is that I don't know the self is also not known. Ignorance is such that it is tamoguna. So when I don't know that what I don't know, how will I even come out of that? When we come to Vedanta, then we realize, oh, there is some self which is my true nature, and I am thinking of myself as this. This is not my true nature. I at least become aware of ignorance when I am told. But by itself, I am not aware of the ignorance by myself. But I am aware of the individuality by myself right from the childhood onwards. So prathama vikaraha. So tesham ekam moolam prathama vikaraha bhavati ahankaraha. And it is this ahankar which then takes us cycle of birth and death. So if somebody says that I have had enough of this cycle of birth and death, now I want to stop this, then that person has to get out of this small I, destroy this ignorance and gain the self-knowledge. That's the only method. Because till this small I exists, there is no freedom from the cycle of birth and death. And this small I can become better than before, but the sense of small I doesn't go, then the cycle of birth and death will keep continuing. Meaning, if I was poor, now I become rich. If I was unhealthy, I become healthy. If I was not having good values, now I start following good values. So I can improve this small I, no doubt, but I am still that small I, this false entity, ego, which changes in the waking, which changes in the dream, which becomes absent in the deep sleep. But still we give it so much of reality. So what Vedanta tells us that a finite can become a better finite, but is still finite only. Only when that false identification goes completely, by dropping the ignorance through self-knowledge, then the cycle of birth and death ends. Otherwise, one takes a birth again, maybe in a better circumstances, in a better condition. Life here and hereafter will be better, but it is still a life as a finite creature. Compared to infinite absolute truth, which is my nature, this is misery only actually, however great it may be. And hence it is, Gurudev has given a very simple and a nice analogy in the second last paragraph in this commentary. So he says, if I have committed murder and a warrant of arrest has been issued, the policeman comes up to my door to execute the warrant. But to whom will he serve the warrant if I have died last night? For the crime perpetrated by me, I must be hung, admitted. But when I am dead, what can the state do? At best, the authorities can only note on the warrant, the criminal is deceased and therefore the file is closed. What else can anyone do? Similarly, if the ego is not there, what can the fruits of action do? All the fruits of actions that have not been enjoyed become burnt in the fire of knowledge, say the Vedanta textbooks. So that's why dropping the ego is the method to free oneself from the cycle of birth and death. Now, this analogy we should not confuse, or we should not misinterpret this, saying that I can do anything in my life and then let the ego die, so I don't have to face the karmic consequences. No, no. I cannot do anything and everything in life and then transcend the ego, because that action and that mindset which I have, that itself will pull me down, will not allow me to transcend the ego. I won't be able to meditate steadily. This is for those kind of actions which are uh, collected in many lives before, for which one would have to take new births. But because one has lived a life of values, one has followed the uh, scheme of evolution. So Karma Yoga, Upasana, go to the Guru, develop the fourfold qualifications, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. This whole scheme one has to follow. This is Jnana Marg, whichever other marg, Bhakti Marg, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, whatever marg one follows. In that there is disciplining of the body, mind, intellect, senses, all that is there. Then only the ego transcends. And then when the ego is transcended, how much ever bundle of karmas I may have in the past, all get burnt up. So the analogy has the relevance only to that extent to say that when the ego dies, then no more karma phala it has to exhaust, no more birth and death. Till now one was going in the cycle of birth and death to exhaust the karma phala. Karma phala is there for whom? For the karta. Because karta is the bhokta. Who is the karta? At the moment, the pure consciousness reflecting in the BMI, the small I is the karta. That small I has to drop its kartatva bhav through surrender. That I am not the karta, the Lord is the karta, I am only an instrument. Or through Jnana Marg, saying I am a Sakshi, the action is happening by the BMI, I am the Akarta. Or it has to happen through Karma Yoga. There also dedication is to the higher cause, where I lose myself in the cause. So any of these methods, when one drops the ego, the Karta Bhav, and if I drop the Karta Bhav, then who am I? I am Brahman. I am consciousness. That's the realization. Once that realization comes, the karta is dead, no more karma phala is there to be exhausted. It will be, because the karta is not there, karma phala cannot be enjoyed or experienced by this karta. It is written off. So the transcendence of the ego is the solution. But as long as I am in the ego, cycle of birth and death is inevitable. Hence, that is why the title of this section, Condemnation of the Ego. The more one thinks about it, that how I live a life of finitude and how much burden I am carrying on myself, when my nature is absolute infinite truth. Identifying with one equipment, I am carrying the burden not just in this life. I am carrying the burden life after life. So you see here, it's very simple. When we do this experiment, now we say you hold this. How long? So if I hold this right now for 1 minute, the weight of this may be some 400, 500 grams. But if I hold it for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it will appear as though it is some 2, 3 kilos. The longer I hold, the heavier it becomes. Heavier it appears, not becomes, heavier it appears. And become more difficult to keep holding that. It will cause a lot of pain. Now, one bottle, if I am holding on to keep holding on to it is a great effort. Dropping is very easy. I just keep it. 2 seconds, over. Now I'm carrying this ego life after life. 84 million species I've carried already. It is painful existence in each of these. But till I come to human body, I don't even recognize it. You know, the other day there was one video which said that, you know, why one particular gentleman, he made the video. He was in army or something. He said, I go to the forest, and when I go to the forest, I recognize so many things that I'm grateful to the Lord. So he gave some examples. He said, the deer, when it drinks water from the lake, it is so scared. Every time it has to see, every few minutes it has to see nearby who is there, anybody is there. Is there a chance of getting attacked? It lives in constant fear. So he says, human being very happily go into the kitchen, take out water, drink. We don't have to be scared because we have made ourselves like that, protected. But out there in the jungle, it is just open. One has to uh, suffer. There is fear. There is survival of the fittest. That's the law of the jungle. So, as a human being, there's a great privilege that one has. You know, in many simple things like this also. But we don't recognize that privilege. That as a human being, I have self-awareness. I can evolve consciously. There are many things that I can do which are not possible in other lives. So if I start recognizing those aspects, one will feel more and more that let me make the best use of this human life. So this point, that human life is precious. In this human life, either I can use this ego to further increase it, or and to go cycle of birth and death, or I can use this opportunity to reduce the ego, understand that that is the cause of my sorrow, and get out of that. Continuing that, ahead, 299. यावत् स्यात् स्वस्य सम्बन्धः अहङ्कारेण दुरात्मना तावन्न लेशमात्रापि मुक्तिर्वार्ता विलक्षणा. It says यावत् स्यात् स्वस्य सम्बन्धः अहङ्कारेण duratmana. The ahankara is called duratma. So what is Vedant's standpoint? Vedanta doesn't figure out whether you are a good person, bad person. If I feel I am a person and individuality, that means I am duratma. Why? From that standpoint of Brahman, this is such a big fall. So he says, Yavat syat swasya sambandha. As long as I identify with this ego that this is me, Mr. So and so is me, Tavanna lesha matrapi, even a little bit I cannot speak. Muktir varta vilakshana. The state of mukti, the state of freedom, which is exclusive or not exclusive, we should say, which is indescribable, unparalleled, vilakshana. The state of mukti, which is unparalleled, we cannot even speak about that mukti as long as even a little bit of identification with the ego is there. Why? Because that ego is the cause of this fall from the state of mukti to this state. And now I am not willing to give up that ego. I am identifying with it, holding on to it, not willing to let go. Letting go is the easiest actually. But we have got habituated to holding so much that to let go has become very difficult. Otherwise, to let go is very easy. Just drop it. But no, that has become very difficult. So as long as I identify with the ego that I am Mr. So and so, and hence what we have to do is find ways and means whereby this ego is sublimated and see the joy of that. See, the comparison has to be done in the mind. That when I am not in the ego state, whether it is doing what I really love and getting absorbed in it, or being with nature, or in the state of true love, or in the deep sleep, so many opportunities are there where I can experience that when the ego is not there, false identification is not there, how much bliss and peace is there. Versus the time when this ego is there and I act identifying with the ego. I'm not even saying identifying with some strong attachment which brings pain. Just the fact that I feel I am Mr. So and so. The moment I become conscious of my individuality and the sense of limitedness, finitude, it will bring incompleteness into the picture, it will bring desires into the picture. And then the mind is disturbed. So when we compare that how I live as a ego identified falsely with the BMI as well as what is my state when I surrender the ego, then one will know that which one do I want really. Whenever I am not in the state of ego, that is such a bliss. The more one understands that, the more will be the desire to sublimate the ego continuously, whether it is through devotion to the Lord or any other method. What helps me to forget myself? That altar I have to just take up, surrender the ego, because till that doesn't happen, lesha matrapi muktir varta vilakshana. So Vedanta is mainly about this dropping of this false identification, removing the ignorance. Every other spiritual sadhana is meant to do this, not to boost my ego, not to make me separate from other people, not to make me feel that I am a great spiritual seeker. Then that very sadhana, which is to eliminate the ego, has become the cause of the ego. And it strengthens the ego. Hence, constantly one has to be aware and alert. Gurudev said, alert and vigilant living is a sadhana by itself. Same thing Ramana Maharshi also said, last verse. Aham apetakam nija vibhanakam mahadidam tapo ramana vakyam. Aham apetakam, that state where the ego is negated. Nija vibhanakam, where I come to know who am I. To live in that state all the time, free from ego. Mahad idam tapaha, it is greatest of tapas. Who says this? Ramana Vagyam. This is the declaration of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. So one who understands this very clearly, that if I am a spiritual seeker, I am studying Vedant, text after text I may study, that itself will bring ego. There's nothing wrong in studying book after book. Continuously being in touch with the Shastra is very, very important. There's no doubt. But the crux has to be understood very well, that in my life, through my daily activities, whatever work I am doing, through my study, through my spiritual sadhana, through my relationships, through everything, has my ego reduced or not? Or am I becoming more and more egoistic? What we saw earlier, now, Deha Vasana, Loka Vasana, Shastra Vasana, those are things on which the ego will thrive. Not only the ego will thrive, it will also be such that we will not recognize that we are actually uh, strengthening this false identification, because there is some joy kick that comes in that. Hence, alertness is very, very crucial. Gurudev said that alertness is the price one pays for freedom. That every moment I have to be alert that ego is rising or falling, reducing. Am I allowing the Supreme to act without the sense of doership? Or is it that I am acting out of this strong sense of doership? So that is this 299. Now an analogy is given about the ego. 300. Ahankar agrahan muktaha swarupamupapadyate chandravad vimala purnaha sadananda swayam prabha. Ahankara grahan muktaha swarupam upapadyate. When the person is freed from this ahankar, the eclipse of ahankar, what will one attain? Swarupam. One will attain the self. So, swarupam upapadyate. Chandravad vimala purnaha. When that eclipse gets over, the moon shines. Purnaha. It is complete in its full glory. In the same way, our Swarupa is Sadananda Swayam Prabha. Pure consciousness, Swadananda, pure bliss, Sadananda, and Swayam Prabha is self-effulgent, pure consciousness. Meaning what? What is believed? See, we know the geographical reason how an eclipse happens. Solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, the sun, the moon, the earth, the positioning. So we understand that part. What the scripture says is little poetic. So the Samudra Manthan story, in that we know that when Amrit was brought out by Dhanvantri, the Asuras snatched it away. Now that was unfair, because the effort was put by both Devatas and Asuras. And the understanding was that when the Amrit comes, both will take it. But the Asuras became greedy. They snatched away the entire pot. So Bhagavan took the Mohini avatar and he charmed them. Took the pot of nectar from them and he said, you go get ready and come, then I will distribute it to you. So some of them went, but one of these asuras, he came on this side, Devata side, disguising as a Devata. He was sitting amongst the Devatas. And Mohini started distributing the nectar to the Devatas. Suddenly, they recognized when Mohini came in front of this Asura, Rahu and Ketu, I think they are. They became two, it was one Asura. Mohini, the Lord recognized that this person is not a Devata. And the other Devatas also had a doubt on him. Then it got confirmed that he's an Asura who has come in disguise. But Mohini had served little bit of Amrit to him and he drank. But before it could go down, the Sudarshan Chakra was released and it was cut. The head was cut. Who recognized this Asura first? That he is not a Devata and Asura is the moon. Chandra Devata recognized this and immediately brought it to the notice of Mohini. Mohini understood and then cut off the head. Bhagavan left his Mohini avatar, came into Vishnu Roop, took the chakra, cut off the head. So the nectar couldn't go beyond the neck. Before that it was cut. But he has already taken this much. So the head survived, body collapsed. So Chandra had exposed this Asura. So this Asura got very angry and upset and he said, I will eat you up. So poetically it is described that whenever this lunar eclipse happens, it is this Asura, who I think is Rahu only, what we call Rahu, yes. Rahu Grasta Divakarendu Sadrisha, that is the expression in Dakshinamurti Stotram. So this Rahu, this Asura, as though swallows Chandra, the moon, but because the body is not there, only till the neck is there, the moon comes out. That is the poetic expression of an eclipse. Like in Mahabharata, the poetic expression is that Krishna covered the sun as though with a disc and created an illusion of sunset. But if you see the Mahabharata, it is a description of a solar eclipse actually. So it is not that Bhagavan did some adharma in that situation, but it is a solar eclipse which has happened there, described in a poetic way. So in the same way here it is, when it says Ahankara Grahan Muktaha, when this moon, which is the self here, is freed from the Graha, the Rahu, which is the ego. Swarupam Upapadyate. So when that moon as though is swallowed by the Rahu and the moon comes out, the moon is still full, complete. There's nothing happened to the moon. In the same way, as though the ego has captured or has swallowed the self, but when the self becomes free from this ego, then Swarupam Upapadyate, one realizes that I am pure consciousness, I am not this body, mind, intellect. And what is the nature of that? Vimalaha, Purnaha, Sadanandaha, Swayam Prabha. 4 words are used. Vimala, beyond all impurities. Purna is full, complete. Ego is exact opposite of this. Ego is full of mala, 6 impurities. Ego continuously feels incomplete. There is no sense of purnata. It is ulta actually. Instead of ego, the ego doesn't feel purnatvam. Ego only gets churnatvam. Full time it gets crushed. There is limited feeling of incompleteness, limitedness, and it keeps getting crushed all the time. So ego has mala, ego is apurna, ego is sada dukhi. Here is sadananda, is sada constantly in sorrow. No matter how much that ego gets, will always complain that this is not enough, I want more. And it is not Swayam Prabha. It is dependent on the self for illumination. In fact, it is the self only which is identifying with one BMI, then the ego sense is born. Otherwise, ego cannot be born at all. It has no light of its own. It has no effulgence of its own to even enliven the body, mind, and intellect. It is the example is the sun reflecting in the pool of water. That reflection has no light. of its own. It is the light of the sun. But the reflection appears to be shining. If somebody mistakes that the reflection is shining on its own, that is stupidity. The reflection does not have any shine of its own. It is a reflection of the sun. Sun is self-effulgent, Swayam Prabha. It doesn't depend on anything else, but the reflection depends on the sun. So if I compare and contrast, first verse said in this context, ego leads to cycle of birth and death. Egolessness is a state of complete freedom. Second verse here it says that ego, as long as ego is there is no freedom. Ego will always lead to bondage. I can't talk about freedom also. The third verse here is says ego has all these qualities. Ego is impure, self is not impure. Ego has limited nature and it feels incomplete, self is complete. Ego is of the nature of bliss all the time, ego is of the nature of misery all the time, self is bliss. And ego is dependent on the self is self-effulgent. Now, how many qualities of the self, which is what we seek in life, which is our true nature already, but not knowing this and not striving to realize this, now I am living a life identified with the ego, then no doubt this will be the condition of mine. I will be miserable, I will feel incomplete, I will feel insecure. And the strange part is Maya makes us feel that this is normal. After all, I am a human being. And this will go, we have to go through all this, what to do. And one doesn't want to come out of it. Because one has become very used to this feeling. How strange that is. You know, when somebody's got used to certain form of exploitation, one accepts that exploitation, one gets exploited also continuously, it may be even on a day-to-day basis, and one doesn't want to get out of the exploitation and the sorrow and the suffering. In fact, if that exploitation doesn't happen and the sorrow doesn't come, that person feels awkward. How strange is that psychology? But that is how it works. Even in relationships, you will see that. Two people are there in the relationship, one is abusing the other, continuously abusing, but that other person doesn't walk out. That other person doesn't even retaliate sometimes. After a point, just takes that abuse and gets exploited, but doesn't retaliate, doesn't walk out. And the contrary happens. If that abuse doesn't come one day, that person feels that something is wrong, something is missing. Why? Because one just gets used to it, as conditioning. And then no inner strength, clarity, nothing. So same way here it is. The ego is taking us for a ride, life after life after life. So we have got used to that. Happily one is living in that state. That's why these verses are hard hitting to wake us up from that slumber. Get up. Why are you enjoying this state of finitude? This Jiva Bhav. When your nature is Sadananda, Swayam Prabha, Purna, Vimala, where are you stuck? So he's telling us, these verses are telling us that, Arey, come on, oh Jiva, get up. Drop this Jiva Bhav. Realize that you are pure Brahman. Like telling the shaking up the person who is sleeping and dreaming, and to make that person wake up. Come on, get up. Because in the dream, one is suffering, blabbering something also. That person has to be woken up from that state. So that is why this section here. Continuing this ahead. Yo va pure sohamiti pratitaha buddhya pragriptastammasati mudhaya tasyaiva nisheshataya vinashe Brahmatma bhava pratibandha shunyah. So he says here, Yova pure sohamiti pratitah. What is perceived in this body as Yova pure saha ahamiti pratita, that I identify with this body and think I am this so and so. Buddhya praripta tamasa ati mudhaya. By the buddhi, this is imagined. Why? Because of delusion, because of ignorance, tamasa ati mudhaya, and by this great delusion that I don't know who am I, and now I have identified with the body, and now I am thinking I am this body. So the buddhi is doing all this. Tasyaiva nisheshataya vinashe. When this is destroyed completely, nishesha means no residue is left. Nisheshataya vinashe. Meaning, I don't just get out of desire, I don't just get out of attachments. I drop the ego by dropping the root cause, by destroying the root cause, which is ignorance. Then nisheshataya vinashe. That is called that. Nisheshataya vinashe. Brahmatma bhava pratibandha shunya. Then one experiences the state of Brahman without any obstruction. Brahmatma bhava pratibandha shunya. So this is the meaning, simple meaning of the verse. So this buddhi is a equipment which I can use to invoke vivek. This is the vivek. To invoke vivek in my mind, to discriminate between who am I and who I am not. Atma and Anatma vivek I have to do. If I do this Atma Anatma vivek and understand I am not this body, mind, intellect, I am pure consciousness, then again the sadhana is to strive to live up to that state of consciousness and drop the ego. The buddhi will do this. Ultimately transcend the buddhi through steady contemplation and realize the self. So buddhi has a very, very big role to play. From the beginning of the journey till the end, it is the buddhi which takes us ahead. The sharp intellect. Now, the same buddhi, if I don't use well, is the cause of my bandhana also, because that buddhi is only projecting this Mr. So and so. That self-awareness which we have in this human body is what makes me even identify with this and think that I am this jiva, I am Mr. So and so. So both are the job of the buddhi. One is project this individuality, other is to rise above the individuality. Both can be done with the buddhi. Now the choice is ours. If I understand very well that this individuality is the source of pain, why will I hold on to that? I have to drop that. And today it has become much more challenging to drop. Why? Because it's a world of projection. Earlier it was name, fame, what is that? Name, fame, and kirti. One wants. So one will do propaganda. One will do many things to feel, get popularity. That's the word, popularity. Popularity, propaganda, name, fame, those things one wants. So one will do anything for that. One will do little bit. Suppose one has done 10 units of work, one will project it to 100 units. Today we are in an age where 1 unit of work also is not done. Zero it is sometimes. But propaganda is 100% full. Including in spiritual organizations, there will be propaganda, there will be projection. I am your guru, I am like this, I am like that, come surrender to me. Arey, confusion galore. That's why this alertness now very important, that is ego increasing or is ego decreasing? When we say that we are spiritual seekers and we are doing seva, we are running an organization, or we are doing taking up some project, whatever we are doing, one should know that it should not increase my ego, because otherwise that is no point. That is happening in the world also. In ignorance that is happening in the world. Is it not sad that when we come to spiritual path and we know that this is the path of egolessness, this is the path to drop this identification with the BMI, and I am using this very path to project myself as I am a very spiritual person, I am highly evolved, and I know the way, and I have reached, and I am your guru, and now you are my chela, and you are my disciples, and I will grant you moksha. Hey Baba, I will give this to you, keep this in your house, you will get lot of blessings. It has to be the other way. But Bhagwan is the Karta. My job is to connect you to the Lord. I am only an instrument. I am a nobody. Don't follow me. Follow somebody. Follow the truth. So one has to be extremely alert, because the buddhi can be used for both. It can be used to bind oneself. It can be used to liberate oneself. Having known the scripture, having known the thing very clearly that it is the path of egolessness, it is Nivritti Marg. In that, if the ego starts going up, what is the point? So whatever I do in my daily life, whether it's spiritual or material, the mind must be very clear that is this leading to egolessness or is it leading to ego boosting? And that inside only one will know. There's no question of judging anybody from outside. No question of uh, branding somebody, uh, that here is a person who is projecting himself or herself. That the person knows within their heart. And it's up to that person what to do, because the law of karma takes its course. If I am going to have that attitude that I am this Mr. So and so, and this Mr. So and so has to be projected to the world, law of karma will anyway not lead to mukti to that person, whatever color of cloth it may be. And whatever color of cloth it may be, who is a grahasti or a sannyasi, doesn't matter. If that person is genuinely walking the path of egolessness, inside one knows very clearly, and there is no sense of projection from the ego standpoint. From a functional standpoint, one may create awareness, that is a different matter. But inside there is no sense of incompleteness, there is only gratitude. Then it's a different matter. Because their ego boosting is not what is sought. The cause is important, not I. The cause of spirituality, the cause of Hindu revival, the cause of nation building, the cause of service to the society, that is important, not I, the individual. In the cause, the person has lost himself or herself. And to project the cause, one is doing whatever work and projecting that. So that is a very different matter altogether. So each one knows in their own heart that what am I doing? We can do a small little work and wait for appreciation, wait for recognition, wait for applause. And if it doesn't come, we feel disappointed. As a spiritual seeker, one rejects all that, saying, what is that? It is not conducive to the spiritual growth at all. So alertness, very, very important. And this buddhi of ours, that's why sattvic buddhi when we have, then that vivek shakti is much more in that. And the ability to be quiet is much more in that sattvic buddhi. There is no projection, and there is no craving for self-importance, because that is rajasic and tamasic. So that's about the buddhi and how to be alert, to not allow the ego to build. Otherwise the ego builds. It is only a shift in the externality that I have left the home, I have left all the daily duties with the family, etc. And now I am a spiritual person. But earlier also one was craving for recognition. Now also one is craving for recognition. Earlier also one was a jiva. Now also one is a jiva. Only externality has changed. That is not a real change at all. That is superficial. It has to be actually deep transformation in the way in which I perceive life. The objective of life itself is to realize the self. It is to drop the ego. So everything has to lead to that. My work, my relationships, my spiritual practice, my seva, every single thing. That's why Bhagavan said in the Gita, Yat karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad juhosi, dadasi yat. Yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. All these five, he said, you offer to me. Yat karoshi, whatever actions you do, full day, including sleep. Before we sleep, we remember the Lord and then go to sleep. If I do it with that attitude, then sleep becomes samadhi. In that Shiva Manasa Puja, so nicely it is said, no? Nidra samadhi sthitihi. Atma tvam girija matihi. You are the Atma. Girija, Lord Mother Parvati is the Mati. Atma tvam girija mati. Sahachara pranaha. The pranas are the attendants. Shariram griham. Body is the home where all these are residing. Pujate Vishayopabhoga Rachana. Every day when I engage with the sense objects, it is your puja, because all those sense objects are being offered to you who are the self inside. Pujate Vishayopabhoga Rachana Nidra Samadhi Sthiti. Sleep is the city of Samadhi where I am closest to you. Or not closest, absorbed in you. Samchara Padayo Pradakshina Vidhi. Whatever I am walking, it is your Pradakshina because you alone are everywhere. Samchara Padayo Pradakshina Vidhi. Stotrani Sarva Giro. The speech, my speech is your stuti, your praise. Yadyat karma karomi tattad akhilam shambho tavaradhanam. Whatever karma I am doing, O Lord, is your worship. So yat karoshi, whatever I am doing becomes a worship with this attitude of devotion and dedication. Yad ashnasi, what I eat. Yad juhosi, what I offer in Vedic ritual or a sacrifice. Yajna. Dadasiyat, whatever dan I give. And tapasyasi, whatever tapasya I do, any spiritual practice I do. What does Bhagavan say? Offer it all to me. When we read that, we feel what a egoistic person the Lord is. He says, offer everything to me. No, the idea is when I offer all this to the Lord, I recognize that I am actually one with the Lord. Otherwise, the ego keeps me bound in the sense of finitude. So for today, we will stop here. Any questions? You're welcome to ask.
Hariam Swamiji, right now you said that 5 year karosi and whatever I eat, whatever I, the third number.
Yat karoshi, whatever I do, my actions. Yat juhoshi, sorry, yat ashnasi, whatever I eat. Yat juhoshi, whatever religious rites that I do. Yajna, Havan, Homa, that. That is the third one.
So the fifth one is
Your voice.
spiritual practices. So that's the same thing. Religious rites.
No. The fourth one is tapasyasi. Sorry, the fourth one is
Dana.
and fifth one is tapasya. Tapasya and rituals are taken in two different contexts. One is ritualistic, where there is an activity involved.
Actions. Ritual actions.
Yeah, the puja, havan, yaga, yajna, that is the proper ritual, which also is one form of tapasya, no doubt. Separately, it is taken as yat tapasyasi. It means also contemplation, upvas, vrata, all those spiritual practices. They are all tapasya, which will train my senses, which will help me to come out of my comfort zone. All those. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.